We shall fight in the field.
Mit der Akzeptanz der
C'est pas parce que les
vier
Britanniques
Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört
ont
auch
décidé
die
de sortir qu'ils ne doivent pas
Freizügigkeit
être
der
associés à ce
Personen.
processus.
Brexit means Brexit.
Hello and welcome to another Brexitometer brought to you by the Martin Centre from the world's capital of chaos, London. So where are we now? What does Boris Johnson want? What do his opponents want? What can either side do to get what it wants? And we still have to remember, Brexit is formally just a month and a half away. In a world full of questions, the Brexitometer is here to provide you the answers. So let's just go ahead and see what the next few days have in store for us on Brexit. Let's start with Boris Johnson, who is fair to say has not had the greatest of days. Basically, in a month and a half of his prime ministership, he has had more crises than what most prime ministers have in 4 years of their tenure. So what does Boris Johnson exactly want? Basically, Boris's idea always was to make the Brexit negotiation again a rerun of the 2016 referendum, with the Tories becoming the party of the 52% that voted to leave. Boris basically wants to relive his finest hour, if I may use an expression from someone he really likes. So his idea was always to run down the clock until the 31st of October, either force the EU to blink to get a deal, or if the EU doesn't blink, to have a no-deal Brexit and then go immediately to an election by blaming everyone else apart from himself for the fact that there is no deal. What can he do now? Well, actually not much. The Parliament has basically forced him to seek a deal or an extension from the EU. So the Parliament basically tries to take no-deal Brexit out of the table. He cannot really go to an election because the Parliament requires a 2/3 majority to call an election, and he doesn't have that majority. The opposition wants to be sure that he will sign a deal or an extension while he's a Prime Minister, and he also cannot really resign. That wouldn't make much of a difference because the Parliament can then create a government of its own, a government of national unity maybe, that will take control of Brexit away from his hands. So Boris is basically completely humiliated. He is trapped in Downing Street without really the means to do the agenda that he said that he wanted to do all along. Does he have any aces up his sleeve? We will see that there's actually a few ways that maybe he can escape his bind. The first thing that Boris can do is take advantage of the divides within the British opposition. Now, the opposition managed to unite itself to vote in a law that forces Boris to seek an extension of the Brexit deadline, but the British opposition remains quite divided. You have the Lib Dems and the Scottish nationalists who actually pretty much want to stop Brexit altogether. You have the Labour Party, whose majority is against Brexit, but there's quite a few of its MPs who are in favour of Brexit because their voters like Brexit. And then you have Jeremy Corbyn as leader of the Labour Party, who doesn't really know what he wants. Now, right now the opposition appears united, but the question is, what happens if Boris comes back from Brussels in October when Parliament reopens with a deal? What happens if he gets some variation of the Theresa May withdrawal agreement with some cosmetic changes or a Northern Ireland only backstop? What does the opposition do then? Do they vote against the deal and therefore increase the danger of a no-deal Brexit on October 31st? Do they vote with the government, which actually makes Boris the big triumphant of British politics? What does the Labour Party really want in all of this? Will it manage to remain united throughout the process? There are many divides in the British opposition, and right now everybody seems to be united by the fact that they don't like Boris. But if Boris appears even just a bit constructive with the Europeans, he will manage to take advantage of a lot of divides in his opponents. The other unlikely ally that Boris may have in his efforts to outmaneuver his opponents is actually the EU. One problem that the Brexit debate has always had in the UK, in my opinion, is that even so-called pro-Europeans don't really take into account what the EU says, what the EU wants. It's a very esoteric British debate. It's the same with this law about calling on Boris to seek an extension from the EU. That's not really the end of the story. It's actually the EU that will decide whether they want to grant an extension to the UK or not. So basically, where does the EU stand with regards to an extension? The request may be made by the British government, but will the EU accept that? We know that the EU does not want to be hijacked by Brexit. They don't want to be trapped in an endless Brexit loop themselves either. What if Emmanuel Macron decides to play the really bad cop in talking to the UK and saying, actually, you know what, we don't really want to give you an extension, or maybe we don't want to give you that much of an extension. Is it just going to be an extension for a single month? Does it really change the process all that much? And what if there is an election within the time of the extension and actually Boris wins again? Are we just kicking the process further down the road by just a single month? Or what if the Europeans use the prospect of a short extension, force Boris to accept an agreement, by which point he will be able to come back to the parliament with an agreement and tell the MPs this is what we have, which brings again the British opposition into foreign dilemmas. Again, just as with the opposition, the EU is also an unpredictable player. A lot will depend on what the EU does with the British request for an extension, if it comes to that. And again, Boris has some space for maneuvering there. So that was another Brexitometer coming to you from the eye of the storm. Everything appears quiet around us, but actually there's something really big brewing. We don't really know much right now. I mean, the only thing we know is that right now the no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October has become just a bit less likely because of the vote that the parliament voted. And we also know that an election before the end of the year has become much more likely. You may remember in our last episode, I said that one thing that we can expect before the end of 2019 is another election. Now, we don't know what that election will look like. Will it be an election right after Brexit, at which point Boris Johnson will triumph for having delivered Brexit? Will it be an election in the middle of another deadline extension, at which point it's going to be a polarized rerun of the 2016 referendum between Leave and Remain? Will the Tories and the Labour Party manage to remain united throughout all this process, or will they split, the Tories towards the Brexit Party and the Labour Party towards other pro-European parties? Not a lot is certain right now, but the Brexitometer will be here to guide you again through all the mayhem and all the chaos. Remember, you can always send me your question using the hashtag Brexitometer on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Until next time, take care.
We shall fight in the field.
Mit der Akzeptanz der
C'était
vier
pas parce que les Britanniques
Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört
ont
auch
décidé
die
de sortir qu'ils ne doivent pas
Freizügigkeit
être
der
associés à ce
Personen.
processus.
Brexit means Brexit.